What is up, bros and besties? Thanks to everybody who is here joining me for this relatively late broadcast. So here's what happened. I was literally on my way to the studio when I got a text from Tiffany, basically telling me that the studio was not available. So I had to double back, come here. I was like, I think most of my stuff is charged enough so that I can go live from home. Because what I didn't want to do was not take the time to talk to y'all about what happened this past weekend, especially since like I'd already put it on Twitter and everything. So shout out to everybody who's watching. If you're on Twitter and you want to chat, feel free to come join us on YouTube because I don't think we always get all the Twitter comments. And if you're on YouTube and you're in the chat, say hi. Good to see JV in the chat. I thought about you, JV, while I was getting ready to do this particular episode, and let me tell you why. It was because of something that I heard in Schottenheimer's press conference yesterday, which we are going to talk about. But I know you were there when I was doing the watch along on Sunday, and I was talking about like how the linemen would attack. And then the linebackers, I was like, in an attack front, linebackers should be like following them, at least some of them, but they're not. And so you end up with this big space. And then when Schottenheimer started talking about gap control, like, it just made me the way he set it up made me mad, and maybe I shouldn't be mad, but it felt like a lot of it was being put on the linebackers, and I was just like, I feel like it's more so due to scheme and coaching. We're gonna talk about all that. We're gonna talk about all that. There's actually a few things from this weekend that I wanted to get into, and I wanted to save the defense for last because I feel more of a rant than anything. But as usual, let me know if there's any technical difficulties on y'all side because, like, even once I got home and I got everything set up, I was having camera issues, I was having mic issues. So I would hate to think that I came all the way here, only to not have things work out. But yeah, essentially what I want to talk about, especially since I don't have a time limit today. So whatever questions, whatever takes y'all have that y'all want to put in the chat, go for it. I don't have a time limit today. We don't have commercial breaks today because I'm at home. I'm not in the studio. Um, the first thing I'm curious about for anyone who is in the chat, JV and anybody else who might be watching, I'm curious. Are y'all still mad? I ask y'all this after every loss. Are we still mad? The reason why I'm asking this time is because I'm like, are people still mad or have they become kind of numb to it? Like, I feel like for the first few losses of the season, it was just like, oh, like I feel like if they would have just done this, if they would have just done that, and there was just like a lot of outrage from the community. I feel like for this game, the grievance the not the grievance, the grieving process, like the steps started while people were still watching the game. If for anyone watching me, I signed off. So for me, it definitely started during the game. I don't even remember watching the fourth quarter. I remember that Joe Milton scored a touchdown, but I don't even remember watching the fourth quarter. So I'm wondering if y'all got through it on Sunday, like, if you're so used to the disappointment that, like, by the time the game was over, you were just like, "Whatever," or is it yet another week where you carried it over into the week, and here we are on Tuesday afternoon, and y'all are like, "I can't believe this shit." Um, JV says, "The Jones pride is so humongous that they'll never admit to being wrong until everything is over." Fam, you are not wrong. I listened to what Jerry Jones said after the game. And I listened to a little bit of what he said today. Um, and I noticed a difference in the way that I'm listening too, because like I listened to what he said after the game, and honestly, what caught my attention more than anything was the comments about Trayvon Diggs, which we'll talk about. But when I was listening today, I noticed real quickly that like I just started to check out, and here's why. And I'm pretty sure some people listening can relate to this. The reason I started to check out was because everything I've been hearing from the front office, from the coaches, everything sounds like coach speak. Like I was listening to Jerry Jones, and the stuff that he was saying sounded like he listened to Schottenheimer and then tried to summarize it in his own words. No, no, I'll do you one better. Jerry Jones today sounded like he took a transcript of Schottenheimer's press conference, put it in Chat GPT, and said, "Hey, change this to how I would say it." and he repeated whatever ChatGPT gave back to him. That's what it felt like. None of it felt genuine. None of it felt true. None of it felt like actual solutions for the actual problems that we can all see. Everything that they're saying to the media and to the public these days sounds like they think we're fucking stupid. Like, and I get it. There's a lot of casuals out there, and I don't use casuals as a derogatory term. Like, there are some people who, like, football is their thing, the Cowboys are their thing, and they will watch the film, they will listen to all the press conferences, they will watch their favorite players and break it down, and that's fine, you know? Some people have other stuff going on in their life. I will admit, like, a big issue with me getting used to watching film was figuring out how to fit it in my schedule, like, just the amount of time it takes, you know what I'm saying? Um, so I'm not mad at the people who don't watch it, but I'm just like, there are so many people who do. There are so many people who do watch film, who are watching, if nobody else, are watching their favorite players, or they're watching some position group that they pay special attention to, and it feels like they're just disregarding all of us who do any kind of extra research, extra studying, and they're just talking bullshit. And it's just like I'm listening to this stuff. I'm like, do you believe yourself? There's no way that the stuff that you're presenting as solutions and that the answers that you're presenting to us, there's no way that you think this shit is true. There's no way that you think these are actual solutions. And then it's like, once again, I feel like I'm repeating myself week after week. You listen to what Schottenheimer is saying in his press conferences. And if you start putting it together, like if you list the things that he says are issues, it's every fucking thing, everything. And we're gonna go over this clip today. I'm gonna share with y'all the clip that pissed me off. So maybe y'all will feel where I'm coming from because I don't know if people didn't listen to it or if maybe people just kind of skimmed past it because I've heard other people talk about it and they kind of talked about other parts of his press conference from yesterday. But I was definitely casually listening to his press conference from yesterday until I got to this one section and I was just like, hold the fuck up. Like, you're right about a lot of things, but some of this, we're not really holding certain people accountable the way that we should be. We're not. So we'll get into it. But first things first, I wanted to go over some of the significant insights from the game. I didn't pull any like film clips for you guys, so I'll do my best to describe some of the things that I saw as they apply to anything that might relate to the insights or anything that I bring up from Scotty's press conference. Um, but I don't know. One, the film has been hit or miss. There is a time issue. I'll be honest. Unlike our coaches, I'll be honest with y'all. Um, Sometimes I'm just like, I don't have the time. And then other times it's just like, sometimes I get like a copyright thing from YouTube and sometimes I don't. So I've just been kind of a little bit more selective about showing y'all film or anything like that. Because I don't know when YouTube or the NFL is just gonna up and be like, we don't like it that you shared that. Anyway, yeah, so went to this game for anyone who stuck their head in the sand over the weekend. Broncos beat the Cowboys 44-24. We've got insights from Next Gen Stats. So, first one that pops up, Dak Prescott completed 19 of 31 pass attempts for 188 yards and 2 interceptions, and the Cowboys lost to the Broncos. No, they didn't leave out the touchdowns. He didn't have any. Prescott fared well on quick passes under 2.5 seconds. He's good at those, completing 12 of his 16 attempts for 87 yards, but completed only 7 of his 15 attempts with a time to throw of over 2.5 seconds for 101 yards, and both of his interceptions. Prescott frequently targeted receivers aligned wide, completing 14 of his 21 such attempts for 146 yards and an interception. So when it comes to the lower efficiency when he's holding the ball longer, that's less about, oh, he's holding the ball long and more about what was happening that was causing him to hold the ball longer. And it just really felt like the O line, I don't want to say they weren't prepared. Hell, they might not have been prepared, but the O line was struggling and therefore Dak Prescott was struggling, is essentially what happened. Um, I know going into this game, the offense was something for Cowboys fans to definitely be proud of, and whether you're a casual or an analyst, you could see that. They were clicking on all cylinders going into this game. I think what happened going into this game is you came up against a really good defensive coordinator who while this offense has been good, it has not been perfect, and it almost felt like they looked at everything that made Dak Prescott stumble, in past games, and they were like, "Let's stuff as much of that into this defense as we can." Because honestly, there was stuff that they did that I hadn't really seen the Broncos do before Sunday, but it was stuff that other teams had shown to be effective against Dak Prescott. And here's what really worries me about the whole thing. If the Cowboys don't do something, that the offense can backslide, like, really quickly and very immediately, because what the Broncos did is something that no other team can replicate. It's not like they had one particular player. I mean, their defense did play well, but it's not like it was, like, one particular player who was just better than anything we've ever seen. Everything that they did was duplicable. They found the right combination of elements, right? So, if you were watching the live stream on Sunday, one of the things that I said was, it was really smart for them to put, Surtain on George Pickens, because George Pickens has been really good about drawing the DPIs. So the person that you want on him, you want somebody who's experienced and who's smart themselves to make the odds of that happen. And if you notice during the game, a lot of the DPIs weren't happening against George Pickens, they were happening against CeeDee Lamb. And against CD, they were double teaming him and basically challenging him to be more aggressive than he's had to be at any other point in the season, because they were double teaming him and he had been used to not having to deal with that this season, right? So that was two smart moves right there. So it's like going into this week on paper, you might look at the offense and be like, okay, they got George and they got CD. Those 2 together are a problem by themselves. And then you've got Ferg, who's been doing his thing. You've got Turpin, who's been doing his thing. You've got Javonte Williams, who's been doing his thing. You've got Blue, who's gonna come along. How are they going to answer for all of that? And it looks like what the Broncos did was they said, "We don't have to answer for all of that. We can take care of CD, we can take care of George Pickens, and we can handle the run game. And if we do that, we'll be able to do something. We don't have to do enough." That's what it looked like they did. That's what it looked like they were thinking going into this game, and they were right. They were right. And if other teams are able to copy that blueprint, if they're able to do some of the, I can't think of the terminology, but a lot of it was happening in the trenches. They were winning the battle in the trenches, and it wasn't just the typical stuff. What is it called that they were doing? Um, so they were doing okay. So the Broncos already blitz a lot. They run blitzing. Um, And I cannot think of the term. Oh my god, hold on. I'm about to look it up because it's something that I've seen before, but I don't see a lot, at least not from the Cowboys, and I just wanna make sure I have the term right. Yes, double A gap blitzing. They were doing some of that, right? So basically, if another team finds their ability with the personnel that they have to put the corresponding personnel on the 2 main receivers, like what the Broncos did, and handle the run game the way the Broncos did, they can neutralize the Cowboys offense enough to win the game. Because as we've seen, because of what the defense allows to happen, the Cowboys have to score at least 30 points to win. Against a team like the Broncos, they gotta score more apparently. Um, but yeah, I feel like for me, that was the most concerning thing about the offense. It's like you can kind of pick apart what you would have preferred to see from the run game or what you would have preferred to see from CeeDee Lamb, so on and so forth. But if I had to put it under one umbrella, it's just like, hey, y'all got to be able to adjust quicker because these teams are watching film and they're figuring out how to neutralize that offense. It's like you can't think that they won't. It's like they've been on some of the biggest shows in the nation talking about how good this offense is. So there are defensive coordinators who certainly have this game circled on their schedule. Like, I definitely got to have a plan for these dudes because they got some weapons, you know? So I just feel like the Cowboys weren't prepared to respond. Weren't prepared to respond to that. They went in with a very similar game plan to what they'd been using all season, and the Denver had an answer, and the Cowboys did not have an adjustment. The reason why I'm not as mad about the offense as I am about the defense is because when it comes to the offense, I trust them to adjust. I trust them to figure it out and be like, all right, here's what we're gonna have to do moving forward. And they have players who are skilled enough to do whatever that's gonna take. When it comes to the defense, that's just a whole ass hot mess. I don't believe they have any answers. Um, and before we get into the defense, let me just go through a few more of these insights before we get into that. Um, all right, here's another one that stands out. Bo Nix, the Broncos quarterback, completed 19 of his 29 pass attempts for 247 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception against the Cowboys in Week 8. And if I'm being real, that 1 interception was more so him fucking up than Triquezy doing anything especially great. um, Averaging 11.7 air yards per attempt, the second highest mark of his career. Nix was particularly effective pushing the ball downfield, completing 7 of 13 attempts, traveling over 10 air yards for 150 yards and 3 touchdowns. He was launching that bitch. Like, he was not afraid of the secondary at all, tying his career high for touchdowns on touch passes in a single game. Now, this is one area where I'm just like, okay, Cowboys did have a very much depleted secondary. That's a problem. So, of course, he took advantage. That completely makes sense. Hopefully, that won't be as big of an issue moving forward. But the other issues on the defense kind of make it so that even when certain people do come back, it's just kind of like, they're not going to be able to fix all the problems, you know what I mean? So even if we go up against quarterbacks who can't do what Bo Nix did in terms of air yards, they're still gonna have a lot of options in terms of how to attack the defense. Let's see. J.K. Dobbins rushed for 111 yards on 15 carries in the Broncos' Week 8 win against the Cowboys. Rushing outside the tackles, which is a real problem, Dobbins gained 73 yards on 8 carries, which was 9.1 yards per carry. That is fucking bananas. Um, Three of which went for 10 or more yards, which is an explosive run rate of 37.5%. 10 of Dobbins' carries came out of 11 personnel, from which he gained 102 yards while recording an 80% success rate. I have a lot of insights from this game. I'm trying to see which other ones I want to talk about. Du-du-du. I think those are the most significant ones, honestly, just those 2. So, before I get into more details about the defense, um, one of the other things that I wanted to bring up that stood out to me from this past weekend, or actually after this past weekend, there were a lot of people talking about the Cowboys being inconsistent and being an up and down team. And that annoys me because the Cowboys are not inconsistent. They're not an up and down team. They can't beat good teams. Like, they're not up and down because one week they're good and one week they're bad. They're up and down because one week they play a bad team and then they'll play a better team. We're going into week 9, right? Week 9 is going to be the halfway point of the season. So as of the conclusion of week 8, the Cowboys have 3 wins. Those 3 wins have occurred against teams that still to this day are not above 500. The Commanders below 500. The Jets, they're at like 0.125. The Giants, I forget what they are, but they're also below 500, right? So the Cowboys have yet to beat a team that, as of this point in the season, is above 500. And I'm pointing that out because, in the past, people might have been able to say like, oh, well, that particular team, they weren't a winning team when we played them, but if you look at the end of the season, they got better. So that means the Cowboys beat a good team. We just couldn't tell they were a good team at the time. That's not the case with the Giants. That's not the case with the Jets. As of this point in the season, the Cowboys have yet to beat a good team. Now, why does this matter? If you've been watching, since before the season started, I've been saying things like, I don't really care what happens in the regular season. All I really care about is whether or not the Cowboys can make a deep playoff run, right? Um, but this matters because in order to make a deep playoff run, the Cowboys are going to have to beat good teams. Hell, because of their record right now, to qualify for the postseason, the Cowboys are going to have to beat good teams, right? So it's not so much that I care about their record or what they look like against any particular team. It's that I'm like, they need to be able to beat good teams in order to do what the fuck they said they were going to do, which they said they were going to make a deep playoff run. They said they wanted to go to the Super Bowl. That's what Schotty said. That's what CD said. That's what Dak said. But they haven't proved that they have the ability to do that, right? So it that's the part that's concerning. That's the part that's frustrating. Is that like you keep talking about postseason this, postseason that. You have not proven that you can even beat good teams in the regular season. So what the fuck are we really talking about? What is it that fans are supposed to look forward to or hope for or be excited about? Because it's like it feels like there's been a push pull with the team. Like, okay, are y'all rebuilding or are y'all going for a deep playoff run? Because on the field, you look like you're rebuilding, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But y'all keep talking about wanting to go into the postseason, which makes sense considering that you have a quarterback that's in his 30s. It's time for him to really start chasing that ring. You have offensive weapons that you've paid a lot of money. You don't do that when you're rebuilding. You know what I'm saying? So, like, everything they're saying about wanting to make it into the postseason and make a deep run makes sense, but the results are not there. The results are not there. So that's just one of the things that's frustrating. So it's like if you hear somebody talking about, oh, the Cowboys are an up and down team, they've been inconsistent. No, they're not inconsistent. They're just not beating good teams. They simply aren't. And they haven't proven that they're going to be able to. And if you take into account what I just said about the Broncos basically just giving the NFL the blueprint for how to beat this offense that everybody's been saying, oh, this is one of the best offenses in the NFL. Okay, well, now the blueprint is out on how to neutralize them. So now what? Now we get to really see what Schotty is made of. Now we get to really see what Dak is made of in terms of how do you bounce back? How do you adjust? How do you take the good things about what happened against the Broncos or the good things still exist within your offense and change it into something that can beat people who might look at this blueprint and copy it moving forward. You know what I'm saying? So, it'll be interesting. And as I've said before, the Cowboys themselves are also not above 500. So if the playoffs were to happen today, they would not qualify. So it's almost like there's no point in even discussing past weeks' press conferences, but all the ones before that, they were definitely talking about, "Oh, yeah, we still wanna make the playoffs, we just gotta do this." Like, you damn near gotta win out at this point, or at least make it your goal to win out at this point, because you've got, like, buku NFC teams that are ahead of you in terms of percentage. So unless something tragic happens to one of those teams to where they just start losing, you're not really on a path to make the playoffs. Okay, Cowboys fans, I want you to think about this. Think about how you feel about this team and how frustrating it has been to watch this team. And now think about the fact that every team the Cowboys have beat this year, the Cowboys have a better record than them. Every team the Cowboys have beat this year, the Cowboys have a better quarterback than them. The Cowboys have a better offense than them. So whatever you might think about this team, the wins they have are against teams that are worse than that. So considering that, what do you expect in terms of playoff hopes, in terms of postseason hopes? Not much. I would hope not. Let me take a quick look at the comments and then we'll get into the third observation from this weekend. Um, Me just me. What's up? Good to see you in the chat. Week 8, and the film says that we are definitely America's team. I'm not even laughing at that part. I'm laughing because my brain already read ahead to the rest of what you're gonna say, and it's hilarious. America is a mess right now, and that might not change. And yes, that does seem to be the case for the Dallas Cowboys. Oh goodness. DC for life, though, just like a lot of us are going to be Americans for life. Yes, I see the parallel. 100% America's team. It's like, oh, the Cowboys, are they America's team? Yes, more so now than ever, maybe. All right, give me 1 second. I need to get a sip of water. Then we're going to get into this third observation I have from the weekend. It's that time of year where the air gets really dry and my voice does not like it. All right. Oh, my video already went away. Hold on. I got to pull this up again. Actually, let me
Put it in the book.
Okay, can y'all hear me now? Okay. If you can't hear me, let me know. Sorry. Um, but yeah, we're bringing out the burn book for week 8. I haven't had to do this in a while. Hoping to not have to do it this season, but here we are with the burn book, and obviously Matt Eberflus has earned an entry into the burn book for his passive ass defense. And passive was the best word that I could come up with because like it's easy to say something sucks. It's easy to say something is bad. But like I was just like, okay, what is a word that I want to use to describe it? And in order for me to have some sense of like, I don't know, journalistic integrity, that was a word that I came up with. But here's the thing. Like, I've seen people blame players. I've seen people blame the scheme. And in my opinion, it's mostly on scheme and on coaching. One, because a lot of the things that we're seeing go wrong with the defense are things that have happened repeatedly over time. It's not shit that just started week 8. It's not something different every week. It's something that we've been seeing over and over again. So whatever you want to think or whatever you want to say about players checking out or, they just don't have that dog in them or whatever it is that you think, if you're a coach worth your salt, an NFL coach, and I don't mean just Matt Eberflus, even though his picture is there, I don't mean just him. I mean even the position coaches, whoever the fuck is in charge of getting these guys in gear. Um, by now, whatever attitude issues that you're dealing with, you should have been able to coach it out of them. If you can't get guys to play for you, you're not a good coach. Like, that almost matters more than your expertise and more than your own personal abilities. And I've told y'all about this example before of me coaching a team, a roller derby team, under a new rule set. That rule set was new for all of us. So it's not that I was so good at that rule set, it was that I was able to speak to the people on my team in a way that got them active. And that's what got us to third place in the world. We went to the world championships and got third place. Not because I was so good. The rule set was new to me, just like it was new to them. The strategy was something that we all had to learn together. But it was about being able to get the talented people on my team to be like, we're going to show up to practice. We're going to work our ass off. We're not going to give up. Even though everybody expects us to not even make the playoffs, we're going to do everything in our power to get there and to show up and do well because it means that much to us, right? But that's something that has to be instilled in players, right? So it's like, unless you can point out specific things that a person is doing that is not duplicated among other people at their position and that is not duplicated week after week, I'm like, I don't care what it is. It's on coaches because especially when we talk about the linebackers, and I'm bringing them up for a reason, which we're going to talk about that in a second. But especially when we talk about the linebackers, it's definitely something that seems to have been coached. But overall, it's the fact that what I'm seeing is something that, like, we're seeing guys who have looked good in other situations, in prior seasons, all of a sudden look worse than they've ever looked before. And you can't convince me that all these dudes just all at the same time just started to fucking suck. Like, you can't convince me. Like, this is a scheme issue, this is a coaching issue, right? But the thing is, I wasn't even really gonna talk about this. I actually wanted to talk more about what's going on with Trayvon Diggs, because that whole situation is just fucking weird, and we might get to it. But I didn't even plan to talk about this until I heard what Brian Schottenheimer said in his press conference yesterday. And before I play this, this is a clip. If you are able, you should go back and listen to the entire press conference because he did take accountability for certain things. He also talked about the offense at times. But as I was listening, there was this one part in his press conference that had my ears perk up like, hold the fuck up. What exactly are we saying here? So let's go ahead and get to that section.
Is what the first thing I would say, Clarence. I mean, just guys fitting their gaps, and we got to clean up our eyes. We've said that. I've said that up here probably too many times. There's so many things in today's modern day of pro football where it's not just layman's terms, but you're not just running outside zone to the right or to the left anymore. There's things crossing and motions that go across, and it's designed for a reason. It's designed to kind of make a guy not fit the gap the right way. And the best way to play run defense is to be coordinated and to fit your gaps. And there's been
Okay. So I'm going to pause right there because what he's talking about is gap control. And as soon as I heard this, I was just like, why are we talking about guys not fitting their gaps? when that doesn't even look like something like they don't look like they have been coached to take gap control into consideration. And here's what I mean by that. And this is the third week in a row that I'm having to bring this up. Is this or is this not a goddamn attack front defense? And the only reason why I'm bringing that up is because that's what Eberflus talked about in the offseason, which means that's what they spent all of training camp learning. But then we get to the regular season and they start looking like they're doing something different, which would be fine if it actually worked. Here's what it looked like happened to me. It looked like they had this plan for an attack front defense, which one of the keys to an attack front defense is having linebackers follow the defensive tackles, and they are also supposed to attack and run downhill, right? But there was a lot of talk in the preseason about the cornerbacks and the secondary just too much cushion there, right? So it almost looked like their idea for adjusting in that situation was to have the linebackers not attack, was to have them just kind of hang back after the ball was snapped. And I'm like, okay, if that were working, okay, do that all day, but it's not working. So now you have linebackers that are hanging back. They're not exactly helping when it comes to coverage, and they're also not helping when it comes to attacking. They're not helping the way they could be when it comes to run defense. And so then we saw against the Commanders, they switched it up. And they did see some success there, but that success was coming against a quarterback who is known for not really responding well to man. So, of course, if you play more man in that game, you're going to get better results than what you've gotten in past games. But there were still issues against the Commanders. They didn't do everything perfect. It wasn't a complete 180. It was more like a 90 or maybe a 75. You know what I'm saying? But it was enough to get the win, right? And I think for a lot of us, we were like, all right, you are headed in the right direction. Most of the people I know who like really got into studying the game and studying what happened in that game, they weren't like, okay, the Cowboys are there. They were like, okay, Cowboys are heading in the right direction. Let's see what happens from here. Because there were a lot of changes against the Commanders. And even for me, I was like, before I say too much, I got to even figure out, are these changes that they're going to stick with, that they're going to keep, or are they going to keep adjusting and making changes? Like, I didn't even know what to expect to see this week because of how many things changed, not only in terms of front and formation, but also in terms of who was where and what their alignment was and what it seemed like their assignment was. So I'm like, was this, I even said it in the last episode. I said it last week. I was like, was this just for the Commanders or is this something that they're trying to do moving forward? Right. It wasn't clear. And they did duplicate some of that against the Broncos. You know what I'm saying? But overall, when it comes to what we saw from the defense for the most part this season, we haven't seen a lot of emphasis on gap control in the sense of linebackers coming down and helping. JV, this was actually the point where I thought about you. Actually, it's a point right after this, what he says when he starts talking about the linebackers specifically. But I thought about you because you were in the chat and I was like, "Yeah, I came up with a name for it." It feels like the fucking Red Sea because you've got your linemen attacking and everybody else is hanging back, and you've got this big ass gap between your linemen and the second level where a quarterback, if they just need 5 to 7 yards, they can do a lot with that space. You know what I'm saying? And so when he starts talking about gap control, I was just kind of like, "Wait, what exactly are you saying?" Because it's like, in theory, like, it's like what he's saying is right in theory, but if your linebackers are trained to play off and read instead of attack, which is what it looks like. This is kind of one of those things where I'm like, I don't know for a fact that they're being coached to do this, but it's hard for me to believe that every single one of your fucking linebackers is doing the same thing and they're all doing the wrong thing, right? It seems like if they're not being coached to do that, some of them will be doing the right thing sometimes, but it's not what it looks like. It looks like they're actually creating those gaps. It looks like they were trained to, like, read and react, which once again, is this an attack front or is it not? Because if it's an attack front, why the fuck are your linemen attacking, but your linebackers are hanging back and reading and reacting? Those don't go together. You can't just merge them and be like, read and react is good defense. Attack front is a good defense. If we do them both, it'll be a doubly good defense. That's not how that fucking works. Like, people need to be on the same page. And so you can't have your linemen doing one thing and then your linebackers playing in another way. Like, your defensive tackles are literally supposed to kind of lead the way for linebackers. Like, they're supposed to, like, linebackers are supposed to do what they do by playing off of your linemen. And so if you got them doing two different things, I don't know. I didn't like the emphasis on the players not being responsible for gap control when everything I'm seeing says they can coach this way. Because otherwise, why are they all doing it? Especially like people like Maris Lookout. The shit don't even look natural for him. It don't even look natural for him to hang back like that. He looks like he wants to attack. He looks confused when you have him in open field coverage, and that's not a knock on him. He's one of my favorite players. But because he's one of my favorite players, I kind of understand what his strengths are. I'm kind of familiar with when he looks the best. And hanging back is not really something that he's built for. You know what I'm saying? So that just annoyed me. But anyway, let's keep going to this next section in this particular clip.
And breakdowns at a lot of different levels by different people at different times.
And I know that was a short one, but I had to stop it there. Think about this shit for a second. We had breakdowns at different levels by a lot of different people at different times. Once again, that wasn't just against the Broncos. That's something that we've been seeing all season. And if it's happening that often and that frequently, to where you can't name one position, you can't name one level, that's a fucking coaching issue. We have breakdowns at different levels by different people at different times. That's just coach speak for our defense is playing like trash. But if it's happening at different levels and by different people, that once again is coaching. And like I said before, if you want to put it on position coaches, if y'all want to be like, hey, we need to start calling out these position coaches and not just Matt Eberflus, I'm right there with you. I just didn't look up all their names, but whoever the hell they are, and hey, I'm not under a time constraint today. I could probably look them up if we really want to talk about it. But you can't say something like that out loud and not once again be like coaching. That's coaching and or scheme. And I'm only pointing this out because like it's not that I believe that the players are doing everything perfect. I just believe that this like evenly spread way of placing the accountability on everybody as though everybody is evenly responsible for everything. I believe that's disingenuous. I believe coaching and the scheme are the biggest problems. Hence, Matt Uberflus seeing his ass in the burn book. Let's keep going. I'm sorry, I'm just tripping. Different levels, different people, different times. That's a lot when you actually think about it.
There's some things that we need to do schematically as a staff to tighten that up and to eliminate some of the combination
Yes.
blocks that are being allowed to happen. You know,
Even that phrasing, we need to eliminate some of the combination blocks that are being allowed to happen. Allowed by who? Who's allowing this to happen, Brian Schottenheimer? Why are these combination blocks happening? And why is it so hard to do anything about it? And that's really the better question because it's like obviously combination blocks are going to happen. It's just like you can't really dictate whether or not they're happening, but why are they a problem? That's the conversation we really need to have. So let's keep going and listen to what he says about this.
if you're playing a 4-down spacing team and you get a combination block and the linebackers don't go and shoot a gap, come downhill, then the linemen stay on that block a lot longer, and so they're going to get more.
That was the part that fucking pissed me off. That was the part that had me like, no, we need to talk about this. Hold on, can I go back a few seconds? I just want to listen to this again.
Then the linemen stay on that block a lot longer.
No, we need to go back a little bit further.
You get a combination block and the linebackers don't go and shoot a gap, come downhill, then the linemen stay on that block.
He said if the linebackers don't shoot a block and go downhill, why are they not? How is it that all of your fucking linebackers are doing something that's supposedly wrong, but they're all doing it? And it's not even in all of their natures to do it. Like that, I know we got to put some of this on the players. The players are not perfect. And when I talk about players, I'm mostly talking about tackling. I feel like for the players, if they could just get that right, they would solve a lot of issues. Some of the other stuff, I'm not sure what the fuck was going on. So before I get back to the linebackers, I'll give you an example. Um, because of the fact that you've got on so many plays, especially when they're playing zone, you've got 4 linemen attacking. Because of that, you saw instances where there was like 6 or 7 people hanging back and or in coverage, right? Basically 6 or 7 people not attacking. But you would only have like 3 or 4 people running routes. You would think with all those motherfuckers hanging back in the rest of the field, because they're not attacking the gaps, right? You would think with all of them, people would be able to handle whoever is trying to catch a pass, like whoever the target might be. But despite all those people, there were still several times where you had receivers that were wide the fuck open. And it's like, it would be different if they were playing men and they were just getting beat over and over again. But it was literally like, no, you got like 5 or 6 people out here. Like you're outnumbered by like at least 1 or 2 people, but they're still just so easily finding these soft spots and just getting there so quickly, so easily. And I'm just like, what? And then like there were times where it was just like, who is this person even covering? Like there was people out there covering grass. There was people out there just looking confused as fuck about who they were even supposed to be on. I might actually have to pull the clips for tomorrow night so we can talk about it. If I even feel like talking about it. After I get this off my chest today, I might not feel like it. I might be like, we can move on. Maybe it'll depend on what I hear from some of the players because I know they have media availability. And then no, the coordinators aren't going to talk until Thursday. So like if Eberflus said something particularly egregious, then I might have to pull the film and be like, oh fuck no. But yeah, just there was just so much going wrong. And so in those cases, I'm like, if they want to say like, no, these are instances where the players should have read something different, they should have done something different. I'm like, okay, I'll buy that. But the linebackers specifically, talking about them not attacking gaps, like that wasn't something that happened against the Broncos. That's something that's been going on all season. And it's been happening so much. You can't tell me it wasn't schemed up that way. You can't tell me it wasn't coached that way. Because otherwise, why was it not addressed before now? Like pretty much every other game, they've done that damn near exclusively. Like sometimes on third downs, you'll see a situation where a linebacker will attack and another will hang back, right? But it wasn't even that frequent. For the most part, you will like if you go back and look at the film from this week and from past weeks, when you see those 4 linemen attacking, you'll see the linebackers hanging back, unless it's like a third down situation. And against the Commanders and against the Broncos, they did incorporate another formation, which worked better against the Commanders than it did against the Broncos, and it made really good use of Maris Luafau's instincts for attacking, right? Which is kind of like why I would like to see that more. Like, once again, I'm not saying that they need to do it 100% of the time, but you've got some guys with some good instincts for that. And according to what you said, Matt Eberflus, all offseason, this is what your defense was built to do, was to attack. So why not let these guys who have the instincts for it do exactly that, attack? Clearly you need it. Clearly you need it because like for all the things that went wrong against the Broncos, some of your best snaps were the ones when there were people attacking. As a matter of fact, there was this one sequence where they sent 5 and they actually disrupted Bo Nix's timing. Deron Bland was really good on coverage. It ended up being an incomplete pass, but there was a penalty that brought it back. That was the one where James Houston lined up offsides, right? So really great execution, except for once again pre-snap penalties. Those are also an issue. But it was a 3rd and 7 that ended up going to a 3rd and 2. And then for some reason, when they redid the down, they only sent 3. And so I was just like, what the fuck is this about? Like, at least send 5 again, like, at least try. So, like, because there was a penalty and now you're closer to getting the first down, all of a sudden you're gonna abandon what you just saw work? I I don't understand. And so it's like, if you follow me on Twitter, that's one of the things that I was talking about when I was just like, I can't tell if I'm confused or if this doesn't make any damn sense. And to be honest, I still don't know. I'm just on here ranting because I just need to get this shit off my chest. Um Which, by the way, just a reminder, if you're watching on Twitter, come over to YouTube so you can join us in the chat. And if you are on the YouTube side, if you have any thoughts, questions, takes, feel free to throw them in the chat. I will pause at some point and look at what y'all are saying and respond. Um, but let's go ahead and make it through some more of this clip.
a lot longer, and so they're going to get more displacement and movement. And there's crack replaces that have to happen. You're dealing in an era of this league. We do it. Obviously not well enough yesterday, but cut splits, and you're cracking safeties, and the corners have to replace. And if they don't, the ball's going to bounce to the edge. You saw us we lost perimeter support some last game, and I know Dobbins got out early in one of the big runs, and it's all about playing your gap and containing things. And I think the biggest thing is just we knew what runs were coming, and we weren't able to stop them. I'm talking about downhill duo and then some of the toss cracks games, and that's why it's something that we just have to really get back to using our fun.
Okay, so what he's talking about with like the crack blocks and stuff, that's another one of those things where it's like, I feel what he's saying, but once again, these things are so common. This isn't something that like you don't see. This is something that like any defensive coordinator worth their salt should be prepared for, right? Like the stuff that he's talking about, that stuff that happens on pretty much like every wide zone or toss scheme. You know what I'm saying? So it's not something that everybody does all the time, but it's something that happens often enough that you should be prepared for it when you start to see it and kind of have an answer. But it's just like there's the way the scheme is set up, it's creating hesitation with these players. They're hesitating. They look confused. And I don't think they look confused because they're stupid. I think they look confused because what they're being asked to do is confusing. And maybe this is why Trayvon Diggs said what he said about the defense not having an identity. You know what I'm saying? Maybe what he was trying to do was call out the fact that, like, yo, we were trained on an attack front all off season, and now we're asked to do this other shit, and it don't fit. And also, it doesn't really play into a lot of what our instincts actually are, and none of it makes sense. And maybe that's what he was trying to say, and it just came out as we don't have no identity. Because if you put all those things together, it's just like, yeah, you don't have an identity. And if you don't have an identity, then when something on the field happens that is unexpected, or when you do kind of have a situation where like maybe your eye discipline is being challenged, like what Schottenheimer is saying, you still kind of have an idea of what to do because you have like a base set of rules that everybody should adhere to. Like at the end of the day, we know we're supposed to do this. At the end of the day, we know we're supposed to approach this like this. At the end of the day, I know my job is this. But if you don't have that, if you don't have consistency in the scheme and consistency in the coaching and consistency in the role assignment, of course you're going to have these situations where there's hesitation. It's almost like confusion is built into the system. Because once again, how else do you explain these dudes looking so damn confused when they go out there? You know what I'm saying? And these are guys who are known for their football IQ. Guys like Osa, guys like Solomon Thomas, guys like Maris Lufau, literally known for their football IQ. Like Solomon Thomas and Osa Odighizuwa are literally known for being some of the most technically sound linemen in the league. Like literally. How is it all of a sudden that they look like they don't know what the fuck they're doing? How is it all of a sudden that they look so confused? How all of a sudden is like do they end up looking like they're not who we know them to be as athletes and as players? You get what I'm saying? So, yeah, and I feel like everything that Schottenheimer is describing in this clip is more so a symptom of a passive scheme. Like, what he's describing, there are things that are happening, and there are things that the players are doing, but I don't feel like the players are the cause, if that makes sense. I feel like everything he's describing is a symptom of what they're being coached to do. It's a symptom of what the scheme is making them do, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense to you guys. And I do see the comments. Hey, Clement, good to see you in the chat. I'm gonna get to all of that in just a second. Where'd that tab go?
Fundamentals and techniques, and we drilled those things, and they didn't show up in game day, and that's what's disappointing as a coach.
Yeah, after Carolina, we talked about physical.
And that's what's disappointing as a coach. Um, so yeah, just to kind of recap some of the things that he said. One of the things that wasn't in this clip, but that he did say that I think is gonna apply to what Clement is saying in the chat. He said that they were changing up the green dot. And I'm like, why? Why would you do that? To me, that speaks to a bigger issue. And it's like honestly, it's still something I blame on coaches because how do you get to game day and y'all can't decide who the green dot should be? What the fuck is going on? You know, like, how is that even happening? Like, considering, like, all the preparation that y'all are saying y'all are doing, the defensive players are saying they're having player-only meetings. Like, you've had like, week after week after week to see it's not like y'all been winning and didn't realize that there were issues in the defense because, like people always say, like, winning will hide a lot of sins. It's not like that's been the case. Like, you've seen that there are issues. Y'all have been having players-only meetings, but somehow you get to Sunday, to game day, and you're having to switch up who the green dot is? What the fuck is going on? So, like, yes, the players should be held responsible for things like penalties. And if they're the ones fucking up zone because their eye discipline is as bad as Schotty says it is, yes, they should be held accountable for that too. But I feel like a lot of what you're saying, a lot of what these issues are, come down to coaching and either not knowing what you're doing or not knowing how to get these guys to play for you. Like, there are multiple options for what could be the problem, but none of them are good. None of them are good. Let me see what y'all are saying. Alright, Clement says, "Don't hold Shotty's words to the fire on Monday night versus Arizona." I don't care what Jerry says on his show today. The problem is the whole defense, starting with the D-line, who are getting, uh, any push to stop the run game and no pass rush in the passing game. Linebackers aren't good enough in pass coverage, and run fits in secondary are getting burned by wide receivers and tight ends. The defense aren't communicating when it comes to the scheme and assignment, and that is leading to big plays for the opponent. Maybe it is the communication issue. Maybe that's why Scotty even brought up the green dot. My phone is about to die. Lack of this discipline has been a problem for this team for years. Penalties will get you beaten along with turnovers. Facts, facts, and more facts. So, Clement, based on what you said, I'm curious, like, are you part of Scotty where a lot of this is on the players and some of it is on the coaching, or are you kind of in line that we're thinking that a lot of this is on Eberflus? And the main reason why I'm not putting it all on the players, once again, is because a lot of these guys have shown themselves to have high football IQ, to be technically sound, and to be really good players in other situations. Whether it was on another team or in a prior season, they've shown that they know what they're doing. Yet for some reason this season, in this scheme, under this coaching staff, they look a hot mess. And then you have the people who are like, "Hire Eberflus." I'm like, "Hire Eberflus and replace him with who?" Let's think about how the last couple of coaching searches have gone, and then let's, like, cater our expectations according to that. Like, I really feel like people should think about what they're saying when they say we should fire Eberflus. Like, do you really think that's the solution? Do you think things are gonna get better by firing this guy? Like, I don't think he's a good defensive coordinator, but I feel like we gotta come up with something else if we wanna see an improvement this season. Basically, if they can't get it done against Arizona, well, I'll give him the bye week to see. Like, you never know what might happen at the end of the NFL season, so I'll give him the bye week to see. But like I said, there's buku NFC teams that are above them in terms of winning percentage, so they've already got an uphill battle in that sense. They haven't proven that they can beat good teams, so that's another issue. So it's just really not looking good in terms of making the postseason. And there's just not really much to look forward to with this team outside of that. Because it's like we've seen them go 12-5. We've seen them make it to the playoffs. Like, in terms of anybody having anything to prove on this team, it's like, can you make a deep playoff run? That's the question. Um, Clement says the lack of communication on defense is the coaches and the players. We worked out in practice before game week. Agreed. Agreed. I'm not gonna argue with you there. Me Just Me says the Chicago Bears fan base have interesting things to say about the man who don't like grits. No, that's actually another thing I was thinking about. I'm glad you brought that up, Me Just Me, because when I was thinking, I was listening to Shotty's words, and I was thinking about just the issues that if you've ever played a team sport, you kind of have an idea of what issues can arise when guys decide that they just don't like a particular coach, that they don't want to play for a particular coach. You kind of have an idea of what that can look like. And it did get me to thinking about some of the things that I've seen online about what type of coach Eberflus is, and even some of the things that some of his past players have said about him. You know what I'm saying? Um, and so that's another reason why I really question the coaching here, because I'm like, does he actually have what it takes to motivate them? Does he have what it takes to get them to play for him? Because if you listen to other people talk about him, the answer is no. Like, if you listen to his former players, if you listen to Chicago Bears fans like me, just brought up, they're gonna say no. I feel like Brian Schottenheimer and Jerry Jones are the only people who I've heard speak positively about his coaching recently. Um, and we can't really trust what they say these days because it seems like they just go to the podium with the politically correct answer and then let the fans do with that information what they will. So, yeah, I don't really know how to feel about any of that. So, but anyway, that's where we are. Just to kind of reiterate, I'm not saying that the players don't need to do anything differently. If you watched my live stream, you saw me talk about um, the tackling issues. You saw me talk about the reaction speed, just the pre-snap penalties, just some of the not smart things that they were doing. We'll just like definitely address those things. But I feel like overall, especially when we start talking about things like gap control and the linebackers not attacking, like I'm sorry, but that just looks like shit that they've been coached to do. If it was a couple of them doing it sometimes and it was like inconsistent, I might be like, okay, I see what you're saying. But when it comes to the linebacker specifically, which is the the position group that Schottenheimer brought up specifically, and you see them doing that down after down after down, despite what you know their instincts to be, despite which combination of linebackers is on the field, you see ball snap, they're hanging back. Ball snap, they're hanging back. They're not attacking. No, that is in the fucking scheme. That is what they're being coached to do. So if you're gonna call out the people who are coaching it. Anyway, and Clement is reminding everybody to hit the like button on your way in. It is free. It is free, and it does help me out. And you can do it on whatever platform you're on. If you're on Twitter, you can hit the like button. If you're on YouTube, you can hit the like button. If you're on Twitch, I think there's a like button. I haven't really spent a lot of time on Twitch, but if you are watching from Twitch, thank you for watching. Love you guys. Hey T Jack, how's it going? Yes, it is late, but you should definitely rewind this and put your thoughts in the comments when you get a chance to rewatch it. Um, anyway, before I get out of here, I do want to talk about. Actually, do we want to talk about it today? I wanted to talk about the WNBA CBA negotiations as the read and react for today. Hold on, because this is the week that they're supposed to get it done. This is the week that they're supposed to get it done, um, and it's not done. Spoiler alert. So there's a couple of articles here that I'll read a little bit from. Let's see. I'm trying to find the one that I found earlier. Oh, here's one. This one's from USA Today. It is titled Collier says if WNBA players back down in CPA talks, it would hurt women's sports. Um, I haven't read any of this. We're reading this together. But just a review for anybody watching. Leticia Collier is the VP of the WNBA Players Association, and she's also the one who called out Kathy Engelbert for basically not giving a fuck about players earlier, and it kind of led to this fallout with some people wanting Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner of the WNBA, to be fired, so on and so forth. So, um, so key points from this article apparently are. And they've disappeared because this page has too many damn ads and I keep accidentally clicking on things. Anyway, um, here's one of the quotes from the FIFA Collier. It says, everything is so great in Minnesota. We share everything with the men's team. So whatever they have, we have. After learning that other teams don't even have practice facilities, they don't even have changing rooms, they don't have all these things, it feels really unjust. So basically, what she's talking about is something that happens not only in the WNBA, but something that happens across women's sports. And I'm going to connect it to a quote that came out previously that I don't remember exactly, but to paraphrase, um, It was something like, the WNBA is not a charity or women's sports is not a charity or something like that, and I thought it was especially significant because if you don't know the history of women's sports, um, for a long time, the people who invested in WNBA or in women's soccer and things like that, they didn't want to grow it the way that men's sports was growing. It was basically something that they were doing to add to their investment portfolio, right? And so they tried to keep costs as low as possible, maximize profit. They weren't really concerned about doing right by the players. So it led to these women's sports where women don't have practice facilities, where they don't have changing rooms, where they weren't being paid adequately, where they weren't receiving adequate medical care, where they didn't have qualified trainers, qualified coaches, things like that. And not only did they not have those things, there wasn't a push to get it. There was no effort to get it for them, you know? So I do kind of feel what she's talking about when she basically says, like, hey, if we don't keep fighting for these things, like basically like if the WNBA with all the progress that they've made, with the money that's coming into the sport, with the eyes and attention that are coming into the sport, if they can't get it done, what does it say for other women's sports, you know? So I kind of feel her on that because a lot of people who have invested in the sports in women's sports have done so by looking at it as a charity and not looking at it as something worth a risk or worth investing in. Um, the article goes on to say Collier, who's a WNBA vice president and co-founder of the 3-on-3 league Unrivaled, would like to see an equal playing field. She referred to the New York Liberty being fined $500,000 in 2022 for violating the WNBA CBA using charter flights for travel during the 2021 season. Now, keep in mind, WNBA teams have had all sort of issues with commercial flights, with them being delayed, with them being harassed while trying to board commercial flights, or with them just not having enough leg room. You got to think these are women who are 6 feet tall, 6'4", 6'5". These are some big women, and so the Liberty were like, "All right, we'll do charter flights so that way y'all have enough room. We don't have to worry about flights being delayed. We don't have to worry about y'all being harassed." And the WNBA was like, "You can't do that. We're gonna find you." And if this is Collier is basically saying um, we want teams to be able to provide that for the players because it fucking makes sense, you know? But another quote, it goes on to say the WNBA started a charter flight program in 2024, but it has not been codified in the CBA. So that's one of the things that they're fighting for. She goes on to say, feel like that I feel like that is not a hard thing for me to fight for because I'm a player in this league too. I want to lift this up for everyone. I don't mind that New York takes planes. I'm glad for you guys, but it shouldn't be unfair to the point where some people are living in squalor. So I feel her on that. And it's one of those things where we're still not really clear on what the disagreements are between the WNBA and the players. Like we know part of it. We know some of it comes down to that percentage that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, where the WNBA is saying we can't give you a certain percentage of revenue, and the players are like, yeah, but what you're offering us means we get a lower percentage. Like even though the dollar amount goes up, our percentage is going down, and that doesn't make sense because everything is going up for the WNBA. So why can't our percentage also go up? I feel like that's some reasonable shit to ask for. But let me see if I can read the story from the New York Times if it's not behind the paywall. I'll share some of it with you guys. Let's see. It's making me log in. All right. WNBA. I don't want to start a free trial. I might not be able to read this one for you guys because I don't. I don't want to start another subscription shit. But let me see if one of these other articles has the same quotes. This one is from CBS Sports. It says WNBA CBA negotiations, everything to know as deadline nears before potential lockout. So this is everything we need to know apparently. So I'll skim through this one and then we'll get out of here. Um, the current collective bargaining agreement between the WNBA and the National Basketball Players Association will expire later this week on October 31st, and there's no indication that a new deal will be in place by that deadline. Unfortunately, I'm not confident that a deal will be done, WNBPA senior advisor and legal counsel Aaron Drake said on Sarah Spain's podcast earlier this month. And I'll be honest with you, the players opted out October 21st of 2024. So we've had a year and it hasn't gotten done, and it could have. That's another good point to bring up. The WNBA has known for over a year that the players were opting out of this, and for some reason they haven't been able to get something done. Over the past year, the WNBA labor battle has grown into one of the most important stories in the sports world, despite the fact that a lot of these shows aren't covering it. But I digress. The outcome will shape not only the future of the WNBA and women's basketball, but all of women's sports. As the process reaches a critical juncture, here's where things stand. So they kind of go over some of the things that we've talked about on the show. Um, and here's a quote from Nneka Ogwumike where it says, opting out isn't just about bigger paychecks. It's about claiming our rightful share of the business that we built, improving working conditions, and securing a future where the success we create benefits today's players and the generations to come. We're not just asking for a CBA that reflects our value, we're demanding it because we've earned it. I feel like that's legit. So most of this seems to be quotes like that. It says, what happens if there's no deal by October 31st? There are two paths forward. If there is no deal in place by October 31st, an extension of the deadline, then there will be an extension of the deadline or a work stoppage, which are also options that we talked about. So since my phone is about to die, I'll basically sum it up like this. We don't have any new quotes from Kathy Engelbert. We don't have any new quotes from Adam Silver. So, I mean, they have a few days to say something, but so far it just seems to be more of the same, and it doesn't sound like they're budging. Now, they could come out and surprise all of us by October 31st, right? They definitely could, but so far it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. There's no evidence that that's actually going to happen. Um, so I'll keep you guys posted. I'm trying to post more this week and in weeks to come. So, like I always say, if you are watching this and you're not already subscribed, make sure you're subscribed and turn those notifications on. So that way, when I do post something, whether it's about the WNBA or whether it's about whatever Eberflus comes out and says on Thursday about his defense, if I post something about it, y'all will be the first to know. One more message from the chat. Clement says, it's up to Adam Silver to meet up with the WNBA players to figure out what the players want. Simple. It's not making sense to talk with Kathy Engelbert, who they've lost respect for. This is facts. I don't actually know that they have respect for Adam Silver, though, either. So I don't know. But somebody needs to talk to them. Somebody needs to talk to somebody. And between the two of them, between Adam Silver and Kathy Engelbert, yeah, Adam Silver might be the better option. So that's where we are with that. But anyway, my earbud's about to die. My phone's about to die. We've been here for over an hour and I'm hungry. So on that note, thanks everybody for coming in and watching. Hopefully next week I'll be back in the studio pending the resolution of certain issues at the studio. But I'll let y'all know. Just watch my Instagram story, watch my Twitter, and I'll let y'all know when I'm going live. But thanks everybody who came and watched and for being active in the chat. I appreciate you. And until next time, this has been another episode of Bitches Love Sports. I'm your host, Jazz Monet, and I'm out.
You only think of us as a bitches when you intimidated. Put it that way. I think
people look at a woman if she's an aggressive woman who's out to get what she wants to get. You know what I'm saying? Ambitious, and they want to say, you know, when a male is assertive, this is what he wants. He's looked at as a strong male, but yet when I get it, you know, I'm a bitch.
Exactly.
And if that's what I gotta be, exactly, to get what I want and to make it somewhere, then I'll just be that.